back onto the show. Let's talk about that first, and then the bigger picture of the new First Minister in Scotland that will shortly be emerging. The SNP Defence Secretary, or Defence Spokesman, how can I put this kindly, is a hyper-NATO fanatic, a man who hates Russia and its present government, a man who is fanatically pro-Zelensky and Ukraine. How did he end up, as it were, posting the keys to his emails through what he calls a Russian letterbox of some kind? Can you shed any light on that?
Yeah, I mean, it really does seem to be quite remarkable, because the man is, the hawk's hawk. He's absolutely in favour of the British Armed Forces. He likes to dress up occasionally in British military uniform as some kind of reservist. He's absolutely in favour of everything security services does, and absolutely in favour of British foreign policy, which, to me, as a Scottish independence supporter, makes him a very unlikely member of the Scottish National Party. But he seems to have fallen for a phishing scam that a 12-year-old would not fall for. He was actually sent an email purporting to come from somebody he knows, and you opened the email and it asked you to click on a link, and then the link asked you to enter your email address and password. And I mean, I don't know anybody who would fall for that. I know absolutely nobody who would fall for that. And he claims it was the Russians, because obviously, only the Russian state could be fiendishly full of masterminds who could invent that kind of sophisticated hacking operation, as he's called it. Whereas I don't think there's any evidence it's got anything, to my knowledge, to do with Russia at all. But it really is.
I doubt the Russians have ever heard of him, Craig. I doubt the Russians have ever heard of him, or I'm saying I doubt the Russians have ever heard of him, or would be particularly interested in his emails. But I'm definitely interested in his emails, and I know a few people who would be equally interested. Some of them pro-independence like you, some of them against it like me. You, of course, who else? Nobody else would have the courage to declare so other than you. You've come by these emails. You had nothing to do, of course, with the fishing expedition, and you had no connection to any operation that there may or may not have been, but you had the good sense to know who might have these emails. So what are you going to do with them?
Yeah, well, at the moment, we're going through an editing process. We've taken legal advice. And another part of the story, of course, is that I announced that I had the emails and would be publishing some of them in the interest of journalism. And within 3 hours, the police were at my door of the house, demanding to come and speak to me and warn me against publishing these emails. And that's quite extraordinary, because certainly here in Scotland, if you have a burglar break into your house, the chances of getting a policeman in 3 months, let alone 3 hours, are almost nil. And yet, we have the flying squad charging round here, 2 senior plainclothes detectives, and I haven't done anything yet. To warn me against thinking about a crime, which is a remarkable new service by the police. So we are taking it carefully. We've taken legal advice on what can be published in the public interest and what can't be, and we're going through and carefully editing to make sure that it's legally watertight in terms of public interest journalism. So that's going to take a few more days yet. But I can say that basically, it is as you would expect. You know, this is a NATO hawk, continually in touch with NATO, continually in touch with people close to the security services, to continually in touch with people close to things like the Integrity Initiative, and this is, you know, another example of how the state plays out, acting through people pretending to be opposition people. And I think you know, there's a good parallel there with the Paul Mason emails, for example, that were linked.
Yes, it's about form and content that I was just discussing actually with Donald Courter in Moscow, as it happens, an American journalist. I'm not interested in McDonald's views on NATO and Russia and the rest, because I already know the kind of piece of work that he is. I'm interested most particularly, although a political opponent of mine, I'm a great admirer of Alex Salmond. I worked with him in Parliament for decades. I consider that he was the victim of a potentially catastrophic, fatal attack, injustice, which could have seen him die behind bars. I'm interested if there's anything in the emails that might take me closer to the truth of who framed Alex Salmond. Are you able to indicate if there's anything at all of that nature?
Not that we found at the moment, and there's a huge amount of material to go through, and there's no smoking gun on the Salmond conspiracy at the minute. I mean, I think we all know. Well, we all do. I definitely know. I think most people realise that the plot to lay false charges and make false accusations against Alex Salmond was organised from the office of Nicola Sturgeon and from the office in SNP headquarters of her husband, Peter Morell. And there was enough evidence of that in court, which made it perfectly plain what had happened, which the media chose not to publish. But there's nothing I'm aware of so far that goes to the heart of this in the McDonald material. But we're still, I mean, we've by no means been through it all yet.
Well, I hope you can find something, because this has been kicked into the longest of long grass. Alex Salmond was framed, he was falsely accused, he was acquitted by a majority woman jury, the kind of jury that the SNP government would like to, or at least said they would like to, abolish for trials such as Alex Salmond's. But at the moment, we don't know who did it. I mean, we all kind of know, we all kind of suspect, but where's the accountability would be the point that I would make. But let's not go further on to that thin legal ice. Let me take you to the surprise resignation of Nicola Sturgeon. At least it was a surprise to me. Was it one to you?
The timing of it certainly was a surprise. I mean, it seemed like she was coming to the end of her tether over the last few weeks. She seemed to have boxed herself in on an independence referendum and had nowhere to go. She'd made a fool of herself over her gender recognition reform bill, and was being, you know, openly mocked, really, by journalists in press conferences. So she seemed to be in quite a sticky place. But the timing, I think, took everyone by surprise. I really didn't see it coming quite that quickly.
No, again, I agreed with Salmond in what he said about this gender recognition issue. It seems an odd priority for a nationalist government, which by definition you would think had as its principal task the rallying of the widest possible part of the nation for the independence cause, rather than going down alleys and avenues that were much more likely to divide the population and distract the population. But in Ian McWhirter's rather definitive piece in The Spectator this evening, in which he states that it was the Green Party that were to blame for leading the SNP down this alleyway, and that the Green SNP coalition will be lucky to survive the week. Is that how you see it?
I think if the SNP aren't going to continue to pursue the gender recognition reform, then the coalition wouldn't last. I would say I think Nicola Sturgeon had an intense personal commitment to it. There was a rather extraordinary thing that happened a couple of years ago when a couple of, I think about 6 trans activists quit the SNP because they felt it wasn't being pursued strongly enough. And she made this YouTube video appealing to them to come back, which was very, very strange for a party leader. So I do think, I don't think you should underestimate how strongly she was committed. I should say, personally, I have no difficulty with trans rights. I'm a live and let live sort of person, and I think the principle of self-ID makes perfect sense. But to take it to the extreme of saying that rapists should be able to self-ID as female after having committed rape, and then go into women's prisons, and that kind of, frankly, mad ideological stance, how she got into that position, I will never quite understand. And you had amendments specifically on that, but proposed by members of her own party, saying, well, yes, this is all fine, but it shouldn't apply to sexual offenders, which she had voted down on a 3-line whip. So I don't think you should underestimate her personal commitment. It wasn't just for Greens, it was the Greens and Nicola Sturgeon, who for some reason became ideologically obsessed to an unreasonable degree. And as you said, and as Alex said, she appears totally to have lost sight of the goal of independence. These things can be sorted after independence.
Finally, who's your money on? I know you're not a betting man, Craig, but if you were, who would your money be on to come top of the heap in the forthcoming SNP leadership election?
Well, I think, unfortunately, and very unfortunately, we'll probably end up with Angus Robertson, who is as popular with MI5 and the British Army as Stuart MacDonald is. And I'm afraid I don't think we're going to see the security services letting go their grip on the SNP anytime soon.
Craig Murray, thanks as always for joining us on the mother of all talk shows. What an excellent fellow.